He's one of the most important characters in the Dance of the Dragons, but who was Sir Criston Cole, and what did he actually want in the books? Let's take a look. Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to In Deep Geek. On this channel we dive deep into the lore of A Song of Ice and Fire, The Lord of the Rings, The Witcher and more. If you're new here, welcome. And I should probably say that there are spoilers here for what happens in Fire and Blood, and therefore House of the Dragon, although, as we'll see, the TV show has clearly already made some changes to Criston Cole's story, and some decisions on what actually happened where the book is silent. We're first introduced to Sir Criston Cole not in Fire and Blood, but in a history lesson in A Song of Ice and Fire. Sir Aris Oakheart thinks back on the legacy of his fellow member of the Kingsguard. Criston the Kingmaker had set brother against sister and divided the Kingsguard against itself, bringing on the terrible war the singers named the Dance of the Dragons. Some claimed he acted from ambition, for Prince Aegon was more tractable than his willful older sister. Others allowed him nobler motives and argued that he was defending ancient Andal custom. A few whispered that Sir Criston had been Princess Rhaenyra's lover before he took the White and wanted vengeance on the woman who had spurned him. That's all a big claim, that he is primarily responsible for the start of the Dance of the Dragons. As far as Aris is concerned, Criston Cole's role is beyond doubt. The only uncertainty was why he did it. Later, Jaime Lannister thinks that Criston Cole was historically one of both the best and the worst of the Kingsguard. History, it seems, remembers Criston Cole as a complex character. His impact is undoubted, but his motivations unclear. Regardless, he is the Kingmaker, the person who sparked the war. For those who have only seen House of the Dragon, this may come as a bit of a surprise, for on there his impact seems less, but his motivations a lot clearer. Criston Cole did indeed have a relationship of sorts with Rhaenyra and asked her to elope with him to Essos just before she was due to get married. She dismisses the idea out of hand, instead suggesting that he remain her paramour and her marriage be a political one only. Criston Cole doesn't take well to this idea. He seems to have a lot of guilt about what had been going on and wanted to put things on a proper footing, and at the wedding he takes it out on her new husband's boyfriend. We then get a time skip for several years, and when we return we see Criston now with Alicent. Anger at Rhaenyra seems to drive him now. He calls her a spider who stings and sucks her prey dry. And another word that's even more graphic, but I probably shouldn't say on this channel. This is clearly a lover scorned who has not got over it. So his motivations on the show are clear, but it has to be said that the moniker of Kingmaker that he has in the books doesn't really seem justified on the show. When we get to the Green Council, it is Otto who has clearly been leading the plotting behind the scenes to put Aegon on the throne, not Criston. Anyway, to return to the books, he first comes to the public eye in a tourney to mark the accession of Viserys I to the throne. He defeats Daemon Targaryen in the melee, and then both of the Cargill twins and Daemon again in jousting. Impressive stuff. He gains the favour of Princess Rhaenyra and is soon, at her request, named her sworn shield, and then, the next year, a member of the Kingsguard. For context, at this point Criston Cole is 23 and Rhaenyra just 8. They aged her up quite a bit for the TV show. 8 years later, by which time Criston Cole was Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, Rhaenyra was to be married to Laenor Velaryon. At which point we get the rift between Criston Cole and Rhaenyra. Septon Eustace claims that he went to her and she refused him, much like on the TV show, and Mushroom asserts that it was the other way around, with further salacious details, of course, from earlier, of Daemon teaching her how to seduce her White Knight. The book does not come to a conclusion on which is true, but perhaps it doesn't matter. As it says, however it happened, whether the princess scorned the knight or he her, from that day forward, the love that Sir Criston Cole had formerly borne for Rhaenyra Targaryen turned to loathing and disdain, and the man who had hitherto been the princess's constant companion and champion became the most bitter of her foes. Personally, I think the context clues here favour the idea that she spurned him. It just fits better with his later visceral hatred of her. In the book, he not only kills Joffrey Lonmouth in a joust, but also breaks Harwin Strong, Rhaenyra's new lover's collarbone in the tourney for Rhaenyra's wedding, when his anger would have been hottest, all while wearing Alicent's favour. When we get to the Green Council, after Viserys' death, others spoke of legal precedent to justify crowning Aegon rather than Rhaenyra, Andal tradition, or concern about the suitability of Daemon Targaryen to be Prince Consort. Criston Cole, however, made it personal. Should the princess reign, he reminded them, Jacaerys Velaryon would rule after her. 7 save this realm if we seat a bastard on the Iron Throne. He spoke of Rhaenyra's wanton ways and the infamy of her husband. They will turn the Red Keep into a brothel. No man's daughter will be safe, nor any man's wife. Even the boys. We know what Laenor was. And it is Criston Cole who found Aegon and persuaded him to go with the plan. Again, not by arguing that they were in the right on this, but through a personal character assassination of Rhaenyra. We read that he convinced him that the princess must surely execute him and his brothers should she don the crown. Whilst any true-born Targaryen yet lives, no strong can ever hope to sit on the Iron Throne, Cole said. Rhaenyra has no choice but to take your heads if she wishes her bastards to rule after her. It was this, and only this, that persuaded Aegon to accept the crown. So when you add together the fact that most witnesses agree that he was the one who killed Lord Beesbury in the Green Council, the first blood spilt in the Civil War, he was the person that persuaded Aegon to go through with it, and he was even the person who physically crowned Aegon, the moniker of Kingmaker seems quite apt. I suspect it would be going too far to say that the Dance of the Dragons would not have happened without him. There were too many others of like minds, but he certainly was the catalyst at the heart of it all. During the war, he was proactive, rash even, in stark contrast to his predecessor as Hand of the King, Otto Hightower, and perhaps most tellingly, he seemingly focused on hurting Rhaenyra personally. Any lords who expressed support for her were not just imprisoned, but executed. Aric Cargill was dispatched to Dragonstone to murder either Rhaenyra herself or someone she loved. A trap was set for Rhaenys Targaryen, grandmother to Rhaenyra's and Daemon's children from their first marriages. It is perhaps ironic that this man who did more than most to start and escalate the war died while under a peace banner. His rather rash move to take the bulk of the Green's army and Vhagar the Dragon out of King's Landing in an effort to take down Daemon Targaryen backfired, and on their way back from Harrenhal, they came under repeated attack. Eventually, he realised that the next foe would be too strong for his depleted force, so he approached them seeking a parley under a peace banner. He suggested that he fight 3 of the opposition's commanders rather than the armies attack each other. Pate of Longleaf responded to this challenge with, "I'll have no songs about how brave you died, Kingmaker. There's tens of thousands dead on your account." He then ordered 3 bowmen to shoot him where he stood. Criston Cole's reputation as Kingmaker and starter of the war cost him his life. So what can we make of all this? It seems clear to me that Criston Cole was motivated by simple revenge and cold anger against Rhaenyra. Again and again he targeted her and those she loved, and fought with every fibre of his being to prevent her from getting the one thing she wanted most, and believed was hers by right, the Iron Throne. Not once do we hear him extol the virtues of Aegon, the king he crowned, or the importance of upholding Andal tradition or inheritance traditions, just how terrible it would be if Rhaenyra were queen. He wasn't pro-Team Green, he was anti-Rhaenyra. He knew that denying her the throne would lead to civil war and thousands of deaths, but he did it anyway. The irony that he died under a peace banner is surely intentional by George R.R. Martin. But to lay all the horrors of the Dance of the Dragons at his feet, to label him and no others as Kingmaker, no, that would not be right. This is a complex world, and the seeds of the dance were first sown well before he changed to Team Green. And George R. R. Martin clearly also wants us to look for echoes of his story in A Song of Ice and Fire. The quote we started with was Aris Oakheart, a member of the Kingsguard, breaking his vows by sleeping with a princess and becoming embroiled in a plot around whether a younger brother or older sister should sit on the Iron Throne. Quite a lot of echoes there. But of perhaps greater long-term importance to the plot, we have Jaime Lannister and Loras Tyrell. Both, like Criston Cole, allegedly, broke their vows by sleeping with a person they were sworn to protect. Both lost the king they served. Like Criston Cole, though Aegon was badly maimed rather than killed, and both are now broken men working out what to do next. Loras persuaded Renly to name himself king. Criston Cole was called the Kingmaker. Jaime, the Kingslayer. The echoes are strong. How will they be remembered? Well, here's that conversation they had that we briefly looked at earlier. Most deserve to be forgotten, said Jaime. The heroes will always be remembered. The best and the worst. So one of us is like to live in song. And a few who were a bit of both, like him. He tapped the page he had been reading. Who? Sir Loras craned his head around to see. 10 black pellets on a scarlet field. I do not know those arms. They belong to Criston Cole, who served the first Viserys and the second Aegon. Jaime closed the white book. They called him Kingmaker. Looking back, we're invited to reflect on whether history is fair to remember Criston Cole as it does, as the Kingmaker, the man who caused the dance. And looking forward, we're invited to consider whether Criston's story finds echoes in other knights of the Kingsguard. But what do you think? What do you make of Criston Cole? Let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to see more videos diving deep into the world of House of the Dragon and A Song of Ice and Fire, there's a playlist appearing now on the left of your screen. Or to support this channel, thank you. There's a link to my Patreon page appearing now on the right of your screen. That's all for this time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.